So tonight our clerk is Judy Mines. Welcome, Judy, and Michelle is off today. So I'd say I think we have everybody we're expecting, and I see a couple of members of the public have joined us as well. So welcome to you, and I will call the meeting back to order. We had an in-camera session prior to dinner time. So we're already at item 4 on the agenda. And I see it's 6:34 p.m. So call the meeting to order, and we'll begin as we normally do with the national anthem. Are we? I'm assuming I'll ask Judy. Are you ready to make that work? Your mic is muted, Judy. So maybe if you're trying to.
No volume.
I don't think it's started yet. Thank you very much. I'm just as soon as I get it up in front of me, I'm going to read our land acknowledgement. My apologies for the delay, ladies and gentlemen. The municipality of Whitestone recognizes all of Canada resides on traditional, unceded, and/or treaty lands of the Indigenous people of Turtle Island. We recognize our municipality on the Robinson-Huron Treaty Territory is home to many past, present, and future Indigenous families. The acknowledgement of the land is a declaration of our commitment and collective responsibility to reconcile the past and to honor and value the culture, history, and relationships we have with one another. I will now ask if there is any disclosure of pecuniary interest on the part of counselors. All right, hearing none, then we'll say none declared. Thank you very much. I will now ask for a motion to approve the agenda, please.
Also move, Councilor McEwen.
Thank you, Councillor McEwen. Seconded by,
I'll second.
thank you, Councillor Gorman Matthews. It resolved that the agenda for this meeting be adopted as presented. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you. We have an agenda. So we now have a couple of items coming out of our closed session before dinner. Could I get a mover and seconder, please, that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone approves the closed session minutes of the special council meeting of October 12th and the regular council meeting of October 18th, 2021. And I'm pretty sure that those are reversed. It's no, sorry, I take it back. Special council meeting of October 12th, 2021, regular council meeting October 18th. Is there a mover and seconder, please? These are the closed minutes, which were discussed in closed.
I'll move, Councilor McEwen.
Thank you. Seconded by?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes. Councillor Lamb?
Mr. Mayor, are you there?
I'm here. Can you not hear me? I can see Councillor Lamb seems to, his image and microphone seem to be frozen. Yeah, I think he's going to try and dial back in again. So we'll just hold for a minute. Councillor Lamb, can you hear us now?
Yeah, something happened because I sort of like left the meeting and came back, and I'm not sure, Mr. Mayor, that maybe it's me, but I think your mic's sort of at times you echo and it's not the best connection, but let's carry on. I mean, maybe it's just me. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you actually seem to get frozen out there temporarily. We could see you, but not hear anything. So
Okay. Am I best to turn the video off or something?
No, I think you may have just had a bad connection for some reason, rather. Let's see if it keeps happening. Councillor McEwen has moved these the minutes of the closed session minutes for October 12th and October 18th. Is there a seconder?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Okay. Is everyone in favor of approving those minutes? Any objections? All right, thank you. They're carried. They're approved. That brings us to item 3.2, which is 2 appointments to the board of the Whitestone Library. So could I get a mover and seconder for the following motion, please? That the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone approves the appointment of the following additions to the Whitestone Library Board. Barry Bell and Julie Petrosky. Mover and seconder, please.
I'll move it. Counselor Lamb.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb, seconded by,
I'll second, Councillor Woods.
thank you, Councillor Woods. Any discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I might, I'm the council representative on the library board, and as I said earlier, I'm very pleased to have both Julie and Barry join the board of the library. They'll be fantastic additions, and I'm very pleased with it, as is the board. So we look forward to their contributions to our organization. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? I'm sure the rest of us would echo that comment. We did receive these applications in our closed session. So if there's nothing further, I will ask if anyone is opposed to this motion. And hearing none, I'll declare it passed. So we are now ready to, brings us to item number 8. We are now ready to move into committee of the whole. If I could get a mover and seconder, please.
I'll move, Councillor Woods.
Thank you. Councillor Wood, seconded by,
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
I got Councillor Gorham Matthews. Okay. Thank you. And it is 6:46 p.m. And this is to consider a couple of planning items. The first of, well, I'll ask if there's any objection to the motion first. To go into closed, or go into committee of the whole, I'm sorry. All right, the first item is an application to close and convey the shore road allowance on what is normally referred to as Birch Island on Washcash. It's where Camp Miaconda is located, lot 35, concession 7, in the Geographic Township of Mackenzie. So we have a memo from our planner, John Jackson. And John, if you would like to lead us through this, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. The actual application for the shore road allowance isn't Birch Island, but it's a nearby point of land on the mainland.
Oh,
Camp Miaconda is on Birch Island, but they also have this mainland point of land, which is the location of the application. And the application, I would suggest, is straightforward. The shoreline's clean in terms of not having any natural heritage features. The municipality's policy is to close up shore road allowances of this nature. And the only adjoining property is Crown land. And we have on record a confirmation from a MNDM, MNRF, a representative, that they have no concerns that the closing of the shore road allowance will interfere with any of their programs. So I would say this is one of those applications that's quite simple and straightforward. So we're advising council can take the position to agree to its closure in principle, subject to our administrative procedures.
Okay, thank you for that. Are there any questions or comments for Mr. Jackson?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Councillor Lamb here. John, I notice you say for the transfer of such road allowance established by the municipality of Whitestone. So my question is, why doesn't it say for the sale of? I mean, we have a formula in this, you know, if people are buying properties on Washcash or any other place, there's a formula that applies. Are we selling this, or are we simply transferring this to people?
Oh, no,
Because it
no,
doesn't say.
it will be, sorry, Your Worship, this will be, it'll be sold at the municipality's procedural rules, which includes a rate, which is based on square meterage of land. So, yeah, those procedures have built into them a true cost. So what will happen is that we agreed in principle that we have no use for it, that it can be stopped up because it is a road under the Municipal Act. And once it's declared no longer needed for road purposes, it'll be transferred at a cost of so much per square meter of land. And in this case, it will probably be fairly sizable because it'll double the size of the subject property. And the square meterage will likely be fairly significant in terms of several $1,000s.
I guess my issue, Mr. Jackson, and whenever we get these things, we always seem to be having differing language every time, right? Some of them say, you know, subject to whatever, and there's a whole bunch of points, and the you know, planning fees and whatever, and then the next time there seems to be a moving verbiage in terms of some of these motions, and thereby my question. But so I guess if that's, I guess that's answered it. My second question is this. Many of these shore road allowances that we sell in Washcash are because the only way that the public can really get to the shore road allowance is by boat. And we've had generally a practice to not sell shore road allowances where the public can access it. So I find it interesting, and I haven't seen this property or know of it really, other than what's in the package. But I find it interesting that you say on either side of it is crown land. So indeed, if I'm the public and I'm walking on crown land, can I not right now walk on the 66 feet in front of this camp's property, and that's public land? Or am I wrong? And if so, why are we selling it? Because doesn't that go against our policy of
no,
you know, closing up these short roads?
To the contrary, I think you might be confusing our policy respecting road allowances that lead to water, where we protect those as access to the water bodies. But in contrast, a shore road allowance is a historical feature of the original survey orders of the Crown that put this 66-foot allowance between a waterfront property and the lake in some cases, not in all cases. And so that our policy in those cases is that we support the closing and selling of those shore road allowances as distinct and apart from concession or other road allowances that lead to water. So not to confuse the two, but we're very supportive of closing it. Because I think morally, as you can think about such animals, property owners are in fact, I'm going to say, responsible for paying what fundamentally is waterfront property, and they technically don't have it unless they have the allowance between their inner limits of the road allowance and the lake. So we support, and in fact, the policy is designed to allow for these property owners to regularize their shorefront properties because they're paying waterfront taxes and they should own their waterfront. So this is quite distinct from any other circumstance.
Okay, I thank you and I'll support this. I find it very interesting, your comments on road allowances and preserving them for the public. And I want to remember that in a few minutes when we get into another application. Thank you.
I would just add to what Mr. Jackson has said, that there are no roads, private or public, anywhere in the vicinity of that part of the lake, which back in the day belonged, that whole sort of northwest shore of the lake was part of what was called the Parry Sound Provincial Forest at one point in time, and it was all crown land, and there are very few properties, private properties in it. So the people that in fact, the people that go to the camp and the people that own the camp and that own that property, they access the lake via what used to be Ald's Landing, Lamoureux's, it is now at the end of Ald's Road. So that's anyway. We're not, there's no potential for the road allowance to be used as a road allowance.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question of Mr. Jackson, please.
Go ahead.
Yes, John, this is basically on the boundary between, I guess it's Burton and Mackenzie Townships. And presumably the road allowance, road shore allowances would be on the Mackenzie only, which is in front of the property owned by those folks. The road allowance, which is the boundary road allowance. Typically, we would have a copy of a survey or something to show that there's a break where the road shore allowance stops and the road allowance would continue in this instance. We want to be assured that we're not encumbering access to the lake along these road shore allowances. I know it's out in the wilderness, but still that's kind of our claim to fame here, try to protect access to the lakes, which we work diligently to do. Any comment, John?
If through you, your worship, if you look at the report, there's a 100-year-old survey. It's
Mhm.
kind of, it shows up on a colored version of pale blue. And you'll see that it's not all of the parcels on that survey that are part of the application. So it is actually only the portion of the survey removed from the Burton side. So it won't have any impact on the issues which you described. Those lands are actually still in the name of the Crown. So it's only the parcels that are to the east of the Crown land. So it doesn't really abut the actual boundary road allowance between Burton and Mackenzie. So I don't see any issues at all in respect of this particular application.
Okay, yes, and I appreciate that, but that sketch is the one I was looking at of that old plan. And the lines don't proceed right to the shore, but I guess that will come with the survey for the road shore allowance.
Yes, correct. So what we do typically is we support the closure in principle. That gives the applicants an opportunity to retain a survey, and that's when we get more detail. on
Okay.
the actual number, from which we will use our formula, which I can't remember the actual price. It was like 75 cents a square meter, to calculate what the surveyor ends up with in terms of a total hectareage of property for which we'll assign a price.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments about this application? If not, perhaps we could move on to item 8.2, which is part of a road allowance adjacent to 19 Farley's Road. It's an application from the Stankuses to purchase a road allowance, and this particular one is a survey road allowance of the type that go, it's not a shore road allowance, it's the type that go between every 5 lots in the original survey. And so it's but and it has this application has been discussed previously by council. Mr. Jackson, you want
Thank you, Your
to
Worship.
introduce your report on that one, please?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. This was an application by the Stankuses, who have a property on Farley's Road that curiously looked at as though it was part of Whitestone Lake historically, and the Stankuses had, or at least if it wasn't them, a previous owner had a dock extended off the property that they used for accessing the lake. It was discovered, however, through some of the one of the departments in the office, that this actual shoreline was a road allowance, a sliver of a road allowance that was still in the name of the municipality. And so initially it was done by way of an encroachment agreement to allow for a dock to exist on this property. Ultimately, it evolved into an application to acquire a sliver of the road allowance to attach to the Stankuses property, to give them what I'll refer to as legitimate water access by owning some of the shoreline. And this was where this type of application contrasted, for example, the previous shore road allowance application, because it's not a shore road, it was actually a concession allowance. And policy of the municipality states that we are reluctant to close shore road allowances where it might adversely impair the ability for the public to get to the road allowances. After quite a bit of discussion, it was decided that some of this road allowance could be conveyed to the adjoining owners without compromising the access to Whitestone Lake at this location. And the question was how much? And so I was asked to look at the circumstance, and I came up with what I believe to be a length of shore road allowance, not shore road allowance, the length of road allowance that could be transferred to the Stankuses. And I think that worked out to about 33 meters, or roughly 100 feet. And the question was, well, what value does this particular transfer of 100 feet to the Stankuses property should be determined if council decided to agree to stop the road allowance up and sell it. It was believed that for the most part, it passed the first test, that it could be done in a limited way. The second test was, what should that value be? So municipality staff went out and retained an appraiser to assign compensation to the municipality for this, and I believe that was in the package. So the question is council still happy with the passage of the first test, that it won't compromise access under its policy? And secondly, are they happy with the proposed value that would be expected by the property owner for transferring this 100 feet of land? And I suppose both those questions, your worship, are on the table.
Yes, thank you, John. That's correct. I think we'll open it up for questions and comments.
Mr. Mayor, are public questions allowed? It's Garth Nash.
Well, yes, I think so. Do you want to go? Normally I would let councilors go first, but
Sorry, if I'm in the wrong
no.
here,
Since you're, sorry, I didn't recognize your phone number, Scott, but go ahead and ask your question since you're on the
it's Garth, not
floor already.
Scott. We just sound very much alike. I guess I was just reading through Mr. Jackson's report from the prior application. I think I had it rounded a little bit now that the distinction is a concession between properties, like if you want to think perpendicular to the property versus one touching the shore. So I guess my first question was in terms of the value assigned to things. Is it, if I'm understanding, it's a formula for one, but an appraised value for the other? Just looking at, not having seen the property, the appraised value for a piece of shoreline there seemed quite cheap. I wish we could all buy it at that value. And I guess, and the other one I just saw in the, if it was a piece of waterfront land being stopped up, there were words in Mr. Jackson's report about environmental assessment and so on. I was wondering how that was handled for this peculiar case. And my apologies if these had been dealt with on a previous call. And just find the whole thing quite interesting.
Do you want to respond, John?
Certainly, Your Worship. The distinction again between the two kinds of road allowances is one is a freak of history, that being the shore road allowance, where certain original instructions from the Surveyor General's office 150 years ago said in Mackenzie, when you get to the shore, the shoreline of a lake in a municipality, include a 66-foot road allowance. Whereas, contrary to that, for example, in Hagerman Township, there are no shore road allowances. So it was a true fluke of history in terms of how they showed up. So we treat them differently. And the reality is, and I think it's a moral imperative, that when you buy shore road allowances in a municipality, you're buying, when you're buying waterfront properties in a municipality, you're buying waterfront. And because of this fluke of history, you have these shore road allowances that really are contradictory to that very fact. So I think that's why the policy is struck that in most municipalities for shoreline properties where there are shore road allowances, that there is a procedure to support their sale. And in doing that, normally what is struck is a formula. And that being the case in the shore road allowance, where our formula is X plus Y, or X times Y equals the cost of the shore road allowance plus costs of administering it. In the case of road allowances, however, they all differ. And when they differ so much, you have to treat them uniquely. And that's why we go out and get independent individual valuations to deal with those unique qualities and circumstances. So they bear no similarity. In fact, one is quite straightforward, a mathematical formula. We also have a policy where we are a very environment first if I can qualify it that way, and we don't want to close shore road allowances of either sort, whether it's shore road allowances or concession road allowances that might have an adverse impact on protecting the natural environment. So when we were reviewing this application, kind of as a return review, it looked as though that there would be no impairment if the consideration of the first 100 feet from the southwesterly limit of the property were to be considered as having an adverse impact on the natural environment. Beyond that, yes. So the limits were set based on the maintenance of the environmental features that were there. Hopefully that helps, Mr. Nash.
Oh, thanks for the education. I really appreciate it.
Okay, thanks. Questions or comments from councilors?
Mr. Mayor, I'll go
Yes, I have a
first on this.
question, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, go ahead.
Councilor Gorman Matthews.
Sorry.
I came alive
Um,
first.
So I just had a question for Mr. Jackson. I'm wondering, how does the price compare with what our appraisal is with what you would pay for your shore allowance? You know, by square foot, you're saying that there's like a certain amount you would pay per square meter if you're buying the shore allowance. Does that price compare with the appraisal that we got for the road allowance? Because a lot of this road allowance is along the waterfront. So, you know, it sort of crosses over between being a road allowance that you can get access to the water as well as running along the front of the water, which gives it waterfront access. So I'm just wondering, is there a comparison? Have you looked at it in terms of price difference?
I would say it's apples and oranges, so that you can't really compare, but I think I'd have to check with Michelle or Paula, but I think our costs per square meter for shore road allowance is, let's say it's $1 a square meter. So this is 33 meters, and it's curious because a lot of it's very shallow. So let's say it at most, if it was 33 meters and it's 10 meters in depth. I think it's less, but let's say it was. So that if you did 33 meters times 10 meters, you'd have 330 meters at $1 a square meter. You can do that math. So again, it's not apples and oranges. Here, the actual valuation takes what I'll call a non-waterfront lot and transforms it into a waterfront lot, which is a completely different creature. Ergo, it's not apples and oranges. So the set rate for shore allowance is almost a stipend. It's not a lot of money because you're already paying as a ratepayer a waterfront property levy. You're being assessed as a waterfront property. But in a circumstance like this, which is quite peculiar, you're taking a non-waterfront lot, transforming it into a waterfront property. So the value added is going to be not a small amount. It's going to be significantly more than the stipend that we charge on a $1 a square meter basis. So we're only talking, you know, for a short amount of road allowance. If we tried to do the math, it wouldn't make any sense. So rather than something like $1,000, we're looking at many thousands of dollars of value added. That's why you deal with road allowance issues completely apart from shore road allowance issues. Hopefully that's answered your question.
Mr. Mayor?
I guess I just
Oh,
one
sorry.
follow-up. Sorry. So I guess I'm confused when we went and looked at this property. Why is it necessary for us to sell the road allowance in order for it to become a waterfront property when it already looks like a waterfront property. Like, I guess that's why I'm confused by part of this whole procedure, because when you go to the property, like, you would swear it was waterfront because it goes right up to the water and they have a dock and a beach. And, you know, I'm just wondering why we're in this situation of having to sell the road allowance in order to make it a waterfront property when it looks and smells like a waterfront property already.
No, your observations are 100%. It functions as a waterfront property quite clearly. The reality really is there's this little sliver of road allowance in front of this property by the historical survey of what is Whitestone Lake shoreline in Hagerman. So it really, it's almost like a regularizing function. And if the landowners would like to have council consider it, I think that's within their rights to ask council to consider it. But you're right, for all intents and purposes, it's functioning quite clearly as a waterfront property, but in true technical terms, it is not a waterfront property.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Who
Councillor Lamb.
was Councillor McEwen, were you going next? I think you had.
Well, I tried to speak now when Councillor Gorham did. I'm not
Go ahead.
concerned about next or last. Do you wish me to speak now?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to recognize
Okay,
you in turn, I guess. Go ahead.
I had some comments, but they've pretty much been expounded and described by Mr. Jackson. I think we went for comprehensive, did our due diligence on the appraisal. And through the appraisal, it considered multiple factors, which we received a letter of describing how the appraisal was done. I think this is, as Mr. Jackson has alluded to, a very unique situation where we have a sliver of land and giving up a small portion of the road allowance, we're not encumbering the access to the lake. And secondly, in terms of access to the lake, on the, I guess, the east side of this Stankus property, there is an existing allowance to the lake. So that will also provide, if people deem it necessary in the future. And then if you extend the road allowance to the west, pardon me, to the east, I was on the west there, maybe I said east. On the other side, heading east, it goes into the lake again. So there are potential accesses. We're not encumbering, even this one, we're not selling the whole road allowance. We're allowing a certain distance so people could access the lake besides Stanks in front. And then fourthly, there's another road access waterfront, which is it's a paid parking area and it's municipally owned. It's back at the end of Farley's Road. So I don't think we're holding people, or we're not preventing people from getting access to Whitestone Lake by doing this. And then on the other side, it does give the Stankus an ownership, which is 100 feet on the front of about a 350 feet, I believe it is, property on that corner to have ownership and owning it as lakefront property. A consideration for value of it, the property will undoubtedly increase to lakefront assessment and such. So down the road, council will have the advantage of increased taxes from that property. I personally think that we've gone the right route and coming up with, I think, a reasonable price for that little piece of land on the front, as dictated by the appraiser. So I know we've talked about this forwards, backwards, and sideways, and the value of land has gone up, and it's very mysterious. And who can judge why it went up so fast and how it went up so fast, other than the influx of folks with higher incomes and moving up into cottage country with COVID and all kinds of things that happened in the last couple of years. But I see it no different than someone else who maybe inherited a property and it may not have cost them anything for the property. And now they have a very expensive and maybe highly taxed, but a very expensive property on, say, Whitestone Lake or any other lake. Property values have increased astronomically. If I were in the market today, I'd hopefully be the seller and not the buyer. But anyway, I believe I support the move to sell this at the appraised value. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, I think you were next, Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to see this in an entirely different viewpoint. And, you know, I go back 14, so I'm going into my 15th year on council. We have refused to sell this type of situation in the past because it's access for the public to the lake. You know, I go back and I take everyone to our official plan, and in our official plan, it says specifically that we're going to look and do what we can to find more access points on Whitestone Lake. And you can look that up in the official plan somewhere. And, you know, don't take me word for word, but that's what it says, okay? It doesn't say we're going to sell access to the lake. And so it bothers me because and the Stankises are very nice people, by the way. But I visited the property with Councillor Woods. I've also been in front of it on a boat and seen it. And as you go down the road allowance, you're going to see if I'm at the water and I look to the right, there's a neighbor, and then there's a whole bunch of weeds and lily pads, etc. And then there's the Stankus property, or our road allowance with the Stankus property behind it. And it's, of course, you know, no weeds, right? So, and the Stankuses themselves have argued that the area of the road allowance beside them should be environmentally protected. So if we sell this sliver, as it's called, it's not a sliver, it's over 100 feet, to the Stankuses, to me, when we go to open that road allowance anytime in the future, 10, 20, 30, 50 years from now, there's going to be an argument, oh, you can't do that because that's environmentally protected there. So in essence, we're getting rid of the little sliver that the public can get to. It's shallow entry. It's a wonderful, wonderful spot. And the Stankuses, when they brought their property, it was a back lot. It wasn't waterfront property. And then they came for an encroachment agreement, which we've done in the past, to say, okay, you can put a dock there. I'm not sure we said you could have put a bridge and whatever there, but anyway, they developed it. And that's okay. And we've done that in the past. But we've never just sold it outright. And I think it's a mistake to get rid of this for the future of Whitestone. I really don't think we should be selling it. If they want to enjoy it the way they've got it, then God bless them. But I think we should not just sell it. And now let me turn to the appraised price. I think at $38,000, this would be the biggest bargain in the history of Whitestone. It's absolutely not even in the realm, in my mind, of reasonableness. I think that the appraisal is based on a sliver of a road allowance that's unbuildable. It's non-buildable. So he comes up, the appraiser, Sid Steiner, comes up with this appraisal, blah, 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 $38,000. The real and true test is this. The Stankuses bought a property. I think the price was $82,000 a few years ago. They built a big, beautiful, beautiful home on it. And it is a beautiful home. And basically right now they're non-waterfront, okay? So the value of their place is X, whatever that is, 800,000, a million, whatever. It's a big, beautiful place. Now, if we sell 110 feet or whatever, a waterfront to them, the value of their place is going to be X plus whatever. And I would put to you that whatever is hundreds of thousands of dollars more, because now they can say you've got 110 feet on the lake, hundreds of thousands, whether it's 2, 3, 400,000, I don't know. And if we go and say, fine, we're going to sell that to them so that they can gain 300,000 in terms of their value or whatever that number is, and we're going to sell it for $38,000. That's not a good bargain for the people that I'm responsible to, and that's the taxpayers of Whitestone. I'm responsible to ensure that the taxpayers of Whitestone get a good bargain, and at $38,000, they are not getting a good bargain. I will assure you that we might as well keep it for the future of our kids and grandkids so they can truly get access to the lake and not go sell it for $38,000. It's going to end up like it. Yeah, we'll get extra taxes, but how many years do you have to make up for underselling it by 150 or 200,000 or whatever? And that's what we would be doing. And I know that Stankuses will take a different viewpoint to that, but I'm responsible to the taxpayers, and I get my own opinion. So I think this. I just don't agree with it. I don't agree with selling it. But if council decides they want to sell it, which goes against our official plan, and if you decide for the first time in my history to sell something like this, okay, in my time on council, and then you go sell it for $38,000, I think it's a travesty. So anyone I've talked to that's called me on this thing, they think it's highway robbery to sell it at that. So those are my thoughts, and I think council would be making a grave error to sell it. You're going to hear, by the way, oh, it's only a sliver of land. When I was out there, there was a lot more than a sliver of land, and there was sand and shallow entry. It would be a wonderful place in the future for kids or grandkids or people to maybe we want to open a dock of our own out there so people can come. We've got a request on Whitestone Lake from the people on North Meadow Cove Road to use their property to gain access on the north end of the lake. So why are we entertaining that? Well, at the same time, we're selling access over here. It makes no sense to me. So I could go on, but believe me, I am really against this, and I think my position is well known. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I'm wondering if the applicants are on this call. I see some phone numbers that I don't recognize, but they, I think they indicated that they would. Mr. or Mrs. Stankus, are you on the call by any chance?
Hi, Mayor Comrie, Ray Stankus here. I'm on the
Okay.
call.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Did you, we would normally give the applicant an opportunity to speak if they're on the call. Is there something you'd like to?
Yeah, most
tell us?
definitely. I was on the call for 8.1 with the road allowances on Washcash. And some of the points that Mr. Jackson made apply to this situation here. If you're paying for, you're being assessed as waterfront, as was stated, then you should have waterfront. And when you go on WPSGN and look at the survey of our property and the impact assessment, you will see that it has a frontage of the 100 foot already on the waterfront. And my impact assessment is as a WF2. So they're already being assessed as waterfront, and that said sliver of land as it is, right now, easily 30% of the land that was to be purchased is underwater and has been underwater since September 1st. In the pictures, Mr. Jackson put a stake in the water at the high water mark. You can see from the pictures from the time when Mr. Jackson put it at the beginning of September to the end of September, when the appraiser took his pictures, the stake the water ends 15 feet the shoreline from the stake. So basically that 100-foot is at least a third, if not more, greater, is always underwater as it is. And as far as access, something that has been overlooked is there's Crown land access with the sandy beach between 211 and 215 Farley's Road. And it's approximately about, it looks to me, about an acre of prime Crown land right on the lake with the sandy beach. And then going to the east between 215 and 19 our place, there's the road allowance that runs right down to the lake. And then there's that 100-foot consideration. And then there's still the availability of what would be left of the Whitestone Road allowance. And then, as Mr. McEwen said, Councillor McEwen said, to the east of Farley's Road still yet, there's still the other end of that access. So within a kilometer, we have Crown lands of an acre, we have another road access, another access, another access. Within a kilometer, we have 4 accesses. So, you know, we're doing one thing for another, but not for one. And as far as the wording goes, and some of the councillors are confused, just as we are, you know, Schedule C states about shore road allowances and unopened road allowances. Well, to the east or to the west of us, I have a road allowance, and then to the front of me, I have another road allowance. So it was stated that every 5 lots or whatever gets a road allowance. So the wording between shore allowance and road allowances is pretty ambiguous. And to comment on Mr. Lamb's comments, January 10th, 1994, you guys sold the road allowance at 10 cents a square foot. And I have the paperwork, and I forward you guys the paperwork. At 211 Farley's Road, that shore allowance was bought for that amount of money. So as far as it goes as the biggest travesty ever to be known and sounds cheap, I believe it is, well, I feel it's pretty inflated myself, but if that's what council wants to approve, that's what they want to approve. No comparables for Lake Sassibi, you know, with 200 foot of frontage, they're at $1.29 a square foot. Forest Lake, we're at $3.50 a square foot with 180 feet of shoreline. Lake Joe, 417 feet of shoreline for $20 a square foot. Our place with 100 foot, what's available now for land, I bet you is less than 2,000 square feet. So that puts us, I'll have over $40,000 tied up into this. That puts that at well over $20 a square foot. So that we're in Lake Joe prices now. I didn't realize that. And considering Harris Lake, Limestone Lake, Lake Sassibi, you know, we're in that range. Should be in that range. Limestone Lake's $10 a square foot for 197 feet of square footage on a 1 acre lot. Something's making sense, and you know, I appreciate you guys taking the time to hear everything and weigh the pros and cons. And I know we've had a lot of work into this. Everybody has, and it's appreciated on our end. And we await an outcome at some point. So that's what I have to say about that. So thank you, everyone, for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Mis-
I don't
Mr.
think
Mayor?
we heard, yes, I was going to say, I don't think we heard from Councillor Woods. Yeah, that was you,
Thanks, Mr.
Councillor Woods.
Mayor.
Yeah,
Yeah. I got a quick question of our planner, John Jackson. John, this road allowance between concessions, this original is this an original line that was laid out when the whole municipality would have been surveyed kind of thing before all these waterfront cottage lots would have been subdivided? Is this like an original line on the deed?
Yes, so the original surveys of municipalities in the district were done on the basis of 1,000-acre grids. So
Yep.
there were 5 100-acre lots above, 5 100-acre lots below, and they just were surrounded by road allowances, and they overlaid that on the whole of the township, in this case, Burton. So, or sorry, Hagerman. But in Hagerman's case, no shore road allowances. So it's whatever the luck of the draw was in terms of where those lines ended up.
Okay.
And
Now on
that was long before any lot patterns were established.
on page 16 of the agenda package, it shows you what would be the Stankus's lot, and then this small little piece in red here. And it says, the Stankus's lot would be part 9, and then the one next to him would be part 10. So that's a subdivision that was subdivided up. Am I correct in saying that?
It wasn't a subdivision. It was what was called a reference plan. So it wasn't done by plan of subdivision. It was simply done by someone surveying it. And then what they did was they checkerboarded it by putting names in multiple names in ownership. So there was never any issue with future land division. So it was a way to get around any planning approvals.
Okay, so part 9, which would be the Stankus's on this plan that I'm looking at right now, and then part 10, and I can see another one above it. It says part 14. They all have rights to part 15, which is right beside the Stankus's to get to the lake?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay, so the original lot concession allowance that's in there, that's for everybody else, not these lots, right? That original thing was laid out and left there so that people could have access to the lakes.
It's the way we've come to value the road allowances that lead to water. And
Okay, so if someone nowadays goes and gets a plan of subdivision, they have to leave an access point to get to the lake if they want to subdivide some things off, no?
yes, so it depends on circumstances, but we'll often try and preserve any access we can or create new ones. That's just
Okay,
that's good planning.
So part 15 would be for all of these lots in behind Stankus's on the other side of Farley's Road, and for Stankus's and the lot next to them, that they could always have access to the lake right there, right?
Correct.
Okay, so the actual allowance then is for everybody else in Canada to be able to walk down that road allowance to get to the lake, right?
It's public, yes.
Okay, so it's public land, so anybody. You don't even have to be Canadian, right? If someone comes here on vacation, they walk down, there's an allowance, they can walk down and they can look at the lake. They don't have to go fishing. They don't have to go boating. A lot of people don't like it. They just like to sit there and they like to observe the lake, right? So anybody could do that at that point, right?
That's right, it's public.
Okay, so the little sand beach that's right in front of his house, technically I could walk down the road with my 2 kids and walk straight down that allowance and sit there and look at the lake, throw a fishing rod in.
Yes.
Okay, so here's my thing. And I know the last meeting I said I wouldn't sell this, and I will not ever agree to sell anything like this for the reasons that I just said. That's there for everybody to access the lake. Okay. To me, regardless of what price, I don't think that the valuation that Sid Steiner came up with is even close. I mean, to me, it's pretty pathetic, to be honest with you. But that lot allowance is there for anybody and everybody to walk down to look at the lake, enjoy the outdoors, see what Whitestone is, look at this part of Canada. These people have already been deeded access down part 15. They bought a lot that is a back lot. Regardless of what argument anyone else has to have, it was a back lot. When you bought it, you must have known what it was. If you didn't do your research and you didn't hire a very good lawyer to close your deal, because every lot I've ever bought, and there's been lots of them, I find out all the particulars on every single lot that I buy. So you knew you were buying a back lot. And then you come to us, you want a dock. Fine and dandy, no problem. You can have your dock. It's right there. And it's a beautiful spot. And, Ray, you're a great guy. I really liked meeting you. I'm happy that I met you. You and your wife seem very, very nice. If we don't sell you this, you can still have your dock right there, and we're not impeding anyone's right to get to the lake. And that's exactly the way that it should stay, period. Now, if council decides to vote on this and sell it, I'm only one vote. I'm going to vote the way that I want, and it's going to be to not sell it. I'll be completely honest. But if we sell it at $38,000, to me, that is an absolute slap in the face to every single taxpayer in this community. If we take that $38,000, what are we going to do with it? It cost us how much money for the dock over at the town beach, the U-shaped dock, $30,000 neighborhood? So we're going to sell off the rights for people to get to a lake and sit on a sandy beach, maybe a bunch of little kids, go swimming in there, not bother anybody. And we're going to sell that for the price of a dock? To me, it's insanity. It shouldn't happen. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. Well, I guess this is obviously a somewhat difficult or somewhat.
Mr. Mayor, could I ask Mr. Jackson a question? Just one more question,
Yeah,
please.
yeah, you can.
Mr. Jackson, when I first came on council in 2015 or thereabouts, shortly after, we were asked to close a road shore allowance leading to Lorimer Lake, which in essence did get closed. That's haunted me to this very day that we actually closed that road allowance. But that certainly is the exception, and it was deemed to be so unique because of the terrain, mountainous, all kinds of things. But that doesn't preclude the footage on the very front at the lake. But that, in my mind, has set a little bit of a precedent. And we have done that very thing in closing the road allowance, which has been stated tonight that we have never done. Could you comment on that one, if you can remember?
I don't remember the exact details, but the policy is written with some flexibility. And that flexibility is and can take many forms. If it's impractical that a road allowance leading to water has no ability to be functional, and that happens in two-dimensional, or doesn't happen in two-dimensional Southern Ontario, but where we have three-dimensional topography, that can be clearly often the case. And often we would allow for some flexibility in terms of if you can give us an alternative that would allow the continued access to be preserved. So there are a lot of circumstances. One of the reasons that this application, I think, got past the first test was that there was some belief that the qualifying parts of the do not stop up and sell road allowances leading to water was that it was believed that there would be continued opportunity to access the lake from this location. So it got out of the gate because of that flexibility. So are we black and white in that sense? No. There are opportunities that come forward that do allow some flexibility, as there is in every planning kind of application. So this is a circumstance that, you know, is as are many, very different and unique. So yes, you can look at them in different perspectives.
So just one last comment, Mr. Mayor. If I thought for a minute we were encumbering or limiting people's access to the lake by selling a portion of this shore road allowance at the shoreline, I would go against it coldly, quickly. But there is access, multiple accesses. So the only question in my mind and councilors, in my opinion, personal opinion, is the cost pricing of the property. And I stand firm that I believe it's been professionally done and properly assessed. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Is it very brief, Joe?
Well,
Because
just
you took quite a bit of time previously.
Well, I know, but Council McEwen came back, and I need to be able to come back. You know, if I heard Mr. Ray Stankus say he's already waterfront, okay, and he's being taxed as waterfront, that was not my impression. My impression was that he's actually being taxed right now as vacant land. That's all the information I had, and eventually impact will catch up, and I guess, kind of value his place. But if he's already thinks he's waterfront, then this idea of, if we sell it for $38,000, that we're going to, get all this extra tax money is mute if he's already waterfront. And so we're not going to get very many more taxes under that argument. And so one wonders what you're doing by selling $38,000 a beautiful lakefront in terms of the future of our community. And what I mean, we don't need the $38,000 to give up that land. And the Stankuses can continue to use it under an encroachment agreement, and everyone goes on happily. But that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I was going to make a few comments myself, if that's all right. I guess I would go back and start with the point about closing shore road allowances. And I agree with the statement that you've heard from others that if I really thought this was going to be used as a public access to Whitestone Lake, this portion of this particular road allowance going towards the west, in other words, in front of parts 9 and part 10 and part 15 on page 15 of your handout, if you're looking at that, you see where I'm looking at. If I thought that was ever actually going to be used, I would say, no, let's not sell it. No, I agree that would be a mistake to sell it, but realistically, I don't. Having walked it, there are better places for public accesses in the immediate vicinity of this property. The other end of the road of that particular road allowance going to the east would be more likely to be usable as a, in my opinion, as a public access than this one. It's possible that people could walk through the bush from Farley's Road and go down the shore road allowance and go out, but it's not easy terrain, and it doesn't, to be honest, doesn't take them out to a particularly attractive place because it comes out in that place where the water is curving away, and there's some, as somebody mentioned earlier, there are some weeds in the water and that sort of thing. So I don't honestly see it as being as really being public access. And I think if people did try to use it as public access, what they would end up doing is they would end up coming right up beside the Stankus's dock, and then potentially they could be arguing, well, we're on public property, we have a right to camp there and maybe even use the dock and all these other things. It gets into some of the same issues that you have if you are using your shore road allowance but you don't own it. But in any case, let's talk about the assessment of the property, because I think this goes to why the appraisal was what it was. If you look at and you can see this probably best on the geography network diagram, or if you look at the photos that are in your package and see where the stake is that Mr. Stankus referred to earlier, where it is sitting in the water. When I walked it, it wasn't sitting in the water, but the corner of the Stankus's property over towards the west end of their property, where it abuts part 15 on that drawing, that's actually at the water's edge. So for all intents and purposes, they do have a waterfront property, and it's my considered opinion based on what MPAC usually does with these things, that when they do get around to assessing it, because their last assessment was before the cottage was built, that they will assess it as waterfront today the way it is. They'll look and they'll say, for all intents and purposes, this is a waterfront property. And that's how they'll treat it. And I guess it will, if the Stankises choose to dispute it, they may be able to make a case that somehow or other it's not, because they don't own that little piece in front. But it does at the corner come to the water. And I suggest to you that if they had put their dock instead of where it is over further to the west in front of part 15, then they wouldn't have needed an encroachment agreement or whatever. So what are they really getting? That kind of leads you to ask the question, what are they really getting by buying this property? Well, they're getting what I would describe as a clear title, making it very clear that bit of shore leading down to the water that is right immediately in front of their property from the corner to where the dock is now is in fact theirs and is not available to the public to use at their own discretion in the same way that they could in theory use if they were, if it remains as public land. So I think the assertion, and I've seen it, some people have argued, oh, well, you sell this for $38,000 and you're increasing the value of the property, the assessed value, by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Not going to happen, in my opinion. And I don't think that we're selling. I don't think that any motivation to sell this is to increase the value of the property or get money or any of those things. It is simply to regularize a peculiarity of our geography and topography, which is that this lot, which turned out to be, and everyone has commented on this, and you can see from the pictures, if you look at it, it's a nice, it looks very much like a nice waterfront property, but it has this limitation in front of it. And so I would, I guess if I were the applicants, I would be saying, well, what is it? The question is, what is it really worth to regularize this, so that instead of having an encroachment agreement, having a dock via an encroachment agreement, or moving the dock over to where you don't need an encroachment agreement, what's it worth to have it out in front and have it clear that that's their property and not available for anybody who wants to just come and use the beach or whatever. So I'm afraid I can't see this as a selling this as a travesty, and I can't see it as selling it for something near the appraised value as a travesty either. It's it's not in the same category. And again, if I thought that this really, as a practical matter, was a good access to Whitestone Lake, I would say, well, no, let's never mind what the value is. Let's not consider it. But we have closed these types of allowances in the past. The one on Lorimer Lake is, well, I remember that one, and I remember some other ones where we've closed them because they were, for all intents and purposes, not practically usable as shore allowances, as access points. And that's, I just think this particular one is in that category. So anyway, that's my my 2 cents worth on the subject. Are there any other comments that haven't already been Made.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, Councillor Woods.
Go
real
ahead, go
quickly.
ahead. Go ahead, Councilor.
It's actually a question for our planner, Mr. Jackson.
Go ahead.
John, when you seen the price tag of 38,000 for 110 feet of shoreline, was that a surprise to you? Do you think it should have been less or more, or just in your opinion as a planner?
Planners have to be fairly careful about entering into worlds so they're not qualified, but again, it's hard to say. I think when you transform the property from what's technically a non-waterfront lot to a waterfront lot, there's a fair bit of value added. So and again, it's qualified as armchair opinion. It seems more than fair, because if you take a back lot, everyone knows the difference between a back lot and a waterfront lot has considerable valuation differences. So I'll just leave it at that, because I don't think it's proper for a planner to enter into the world of valuations. So thank you.
Okay, fair enough. Mr. Mayor, one real quick one again. The corner of the Stankus' lot beside what's on the one diagram labeled Part 15, which is the access for him to actually get to the lake. He says basically, that's right up to the water's edge, his back corner there. So, I mean, the dock that he put out is nowhere near that corner, even though it's right, basically his waterfront. He brought it away out to the pretty much 110-foot mark, and now he's asking to buy that 110-foot mark. So why don't we sell him half and ask him to move his dock back over 50 feet? Then leave the rest of that beach, because in the summertime, it is a beach. I mean, high water mark is one thing. Summertime, the water's way down. I mean, multiple people have said that tonight. That is a beach.
Well, I guess that's a rhetorical question. The issue, of course, is I don't know. I guess if Mr. Stankus wants to answer, he can. The water level is higher right now. If you go back to just when I think all of us went and took a look at the property, I mean, there was the water has encroached on the shore where the slope is gradual, it's moved back 20 feet into the property from where it was. Like today, it's moved. There's 20 feet more water than used to be there in the beginning. So, I'm guessing that the dock was constructed in order to provide a dock at low water level, at the lowest point.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
If you wanted to be fair to the public and to the taxpayer, if we're convinced that this isn't going to end up with more taxes and that they have waterfront, why wouldn't we, and I, like Councillor Woods, do not support selling this, but if council's deciding that we are going to sell this, which would be, I guess, the other three on council, then why wouldn't we put it up for public auction? Why wouldn't we let anyone in the community who wants to buy that, buy it? They may want to, and put a minimum bid on it of $38,000. And I'd almost bet that if we did that, and if we did that and someone purchased it and then went to the Stankuses and said, move your dock, I've got this land now, but I'm interested in selling it back to you, I wonder what the price would be. And I just throw that out, and that's the lens by which we have to look at this sort of stuff, okay? And so why don't we put it up for public auction? Why does anyone else have a heads up on this thing? There are people that have been over there through the years I know people in the community that say they used to party over there. It's a nice little beachy area. It means something to people in the community. Put it up for auction. Get the best deal we can get. And that's our responsibility to the taxpayer. That would be a compromise position, one that I would, I guess, have to support if the decision is we're going to sell it. But I just don't think we give it away at that price. So thank you.
Okay, now I'm just not sure how the public would access it is your question. They'd only be able to access it via the water. And let's face it, if you go far enough back in history, all of our properties were accessible. People would, if they felt like it, they would come and camp on it because it was, but that was before it was permitted to be developed.
Mr. Mayor, Ray Stankus.
Hey, go ahead. Yeah.
As far as yeah, it would be trespass because it's not accessible for 4 months. Sorry, it's only accessible for 4 months of the year. As far as the tax base goes, I would see an increase in my taxes because of it is WF2, so it would change to WF1, which is substantial increase in property tax, to which the municipality would benefit from that revenue. Just to clarify on a few things, it's what was said that I know would be reflected if this sale were to go through. And one other thing, I have read where it is in the, it has been stated many times, and I've read it, where the municipality can't sell the road access where it hinders my riparian land rights to access the water, being the majority landowner in that area. If that piece were to be auctioned off, as Councillor Lamb suggested, now that hinders my accessibility to the lake, of which I'm already a WF2 assessed by MPAC. If you guys can see where I'm getting at. So that's changing my access, could be challenged.
Okay, thank you.
My comments were meant to be tongue in cheek a bit, and I hopefully they'll be taken in that vein. My point is that it's worth more than $38,000. And you just made the point by saying that your taxes are going to go up substantially because it changes from WF2 to 1. You make my point. Thank you.
Okay, I think we've spent quite a lot of time on this. Maybe we need to move on. Can I get a motion to reconvene to open session, please?
I'll move, Councillor Woods.
Okay, I heard Councillor Woods first as the mover and Councillor McEwen as the seconder. And we're at 8:02 p.m. Anyone opposed to that motion?
Mr.
Hearing
Mayor,
none.
was there anyone else on the call that wanted to say anything on this property? I don't know. I know Mr. Nash did. I don't know whether there's others that want to weigh in on this or not.
Yeah, I'd like to have a word. I don't know if I'm online, but this is Ed Cannon.
Oh, yes, I see you, your picture, Ed. Well, if there are people who wish to speak to it, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I thought we were.
Okay.
But
Well,
go
that's
ahead.
fine.
Go ahead.
I'll be very brief. I have two points I'd like to make. The first one is I'm in agreement with the people that there's no reason to sell it. It should be kept and be available for future generations and of people who live in Whitestone. There may be an opportunity down the road where the road allowance is put in, where there's a beach and people can, the public can access it. The second thing is, as far as value is concerned, I know that the property was purchased for 82,000. It wasn't purchased as waterfront. If it had been waterfront, the value of that land would have been probably $200,000. And that's my guess. But the second thing, the easiest way to resolve this, in my opinion, is purely and simply to take a valuation of the Stankers property as it is, and then a second valuation, assuming that he purchases the property and is deemed as lakefront. And I think you'll find, as somebody said in the past, that the increase in value would be huge. There are properties near us. We looked around, we were looking for another place. And on Lake Manitowoc, we looked at a property there. It was 100-foot width. It had a disused cottage on it, and it sold for $895,000. We looked at another place where it was a tear down, and the property was purchased for $700,000, and with the new property, waterfront is worth $2 million. So the only way to resolve this is to come to a proper valuation before and after. Then at least we'll have an idea of what the increase in value is. Because I don't believe Whitestone is in a position to enrich its ratepayers, which is what we would be doing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Comrie, this is Josh Davis. May I speak?
Yes, go ahead, Josh.
Hi. So, I mean, they say that it's smart to buy property because it's the one thing that they're not making any more of. And I think that's doubly true for waterfront property. And I guess I'm a little confused as to why the town would sell this particular sliver, quote unquote, of land. As Councillor Gorham Matthews pointed out, for all intents and purposes, this is being used as a waterfront access for the resident right now. He has full access to the land. He's got a dock set up there. And you've expressed a concern that, or no concern that that property would ever be used by members of the public, or is not currently being used by members of the public. I guess my question then is, if your concern then is that nobody is using the land right now as from the public perspective, but the benefit to the owner is that there's no challenge then to being used for the land. You know, I can't reconcile that in my head, that down the line, nobody would ever use that land from the public. And at the same time, there's concerns that the resident might come up against members of the public trying to use that land. So which one is it?
I mean, I'm not sure that if that's a question that anybody can answer. It's if you own waterfront property, I think it's an expectation that you have the right to keep other people from walking on the shorefront that's immediately in your dock and anything else that you happen to have there, and that's immediately in front of your property.
Sure, but the
I guess that's if somebody down the road does decide to do it, I don't think they'd be doing it because the municipality established a boat launch there or something like that, where I can't see us doing that, to be honest. That's what I was trying to say, because there are just better places to access the shore that are available in the immediate vicinity. But I mean, that's I think at the end of the day, the question that for the owner is or the applicants is, what is it worth to have, sort of, I call it clear title to the piece of shore that's immediately in front of you. And they have a little wee piece, but it's not very big, and it doesn't kind of match the rest of the what they've done with the rest of the property. So, I mean, I understand why they're asking for this. Anyway, we're I guess speculating what future, not appraisals. We got an appraisal, but what future impact assessments will be. The only way to do that is to wait until impact gets around to doing their assessment on the property now that it's developed, and see what they say. Yeah. That's
Well, to that point, I agree with Ed Can then that the property should be assessed not on its own as a sliver of land, but should be looked at the value of the existing property and then the evaluation on the property after the fact.
but impact isn't going to tell you what it would be if you owned it versus what it would be if you didn't own it. They only deal with the facts as they are, and they do it by comparing other properties mostly. So anyway, look, I'm
Thank you for answering my question.
yeah. Are there any other? Have I missed anybody that wishes to speak? Okay, we're back in. We are now back in regular session, and we have the two matters from committee of the whole. There is a motion. I'll read it to you and see if I can get a mover and seconder. This is the one relating to the shore road allowance by Camp Miaconda. That the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone has no objection to the closure of the shore road allowance fronting Lot 35, Concession 7 in the Geographic Township of Mackenzie, as applied for by Camp Miaconda, subject to the general policies and procedures in place for the transfer of such road allowances established by the municipality of Whitestone. Is there a mover and seconder for this?
I'll move it, Counselor Lamb.
Thank you. Seconded by,
I'll second Councilor McEwen.
thank you. Any further discussion of this one? Okay, hearing none, I will ask our clerk to call the roll for the vote, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Gorham Matthews.
You're muted, Councillor Gorham Matthews.
Yes.
She put her hand up, yes.
Yeah. Councillor Lamb.
Yes.
Councillor McEwen.
Yes.
Councillor Woods.
Yes.
Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
Thank you. That's carried.
Okay, thank you. And I have a motion related to the property that we were just discussing. That the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone, okay, that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby receive the appraisal from Sid Steiner, Remax Perry Sound, dated September 27th, 2021, for part of the road allowance adjacent to 19. It says 19 Farley's Road. It's 219. Am I
219.
Am I not correct? Yes, sorry. I'm gonna just stick a 2 in here. In front, 2, so 219 Farley's Road. And that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone agreed to sell the property to the applicants for the appraised value. Is there a mover and seconder?
I'll move Councilor McEwen.
Thank you. Is there a seconder?
I'll second for discussion.
All right, the motion has been moved and seconded. We've already had a fairly lengthy discussion. I would suggest to you that and you know, unless someone has you know, another proposal with respect to getting some more information or doing or doing something else that, or unless someone wishes to change the number to something other than the appraised value, then I guess you know, we either do that. I can't see to be honest with you, I can't see the point of deferring it. I don't think we're going to get more information in the near future. So, but if there are any suggestions like that, please make them. I don't want to just have a repeat of what we for the discussion we had in committee of the whole. Councillor Gorham Matthews.
Yes. So my only reservation is in the amount. With all the feedback I've gotten from other ratepayers, that seems to be their main concern, is that the amount doesn't reflect the gain that the property owner is going to get to their property. And it still seems ambiguous to us whether or not this is a waterfront property with or without this addition. So that is the main concern of mine, is the amount doesn't reflect the value that the ratepayer is getting. And what to do about that, I don't know what amount is the right amount, but it seems small in comparison to what they're going to gain.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
I think Councillor Gorham Matthews makes a good point. At the end of the day, I'm not for selling this. But again, if the desire of three on council is to sell it, then you know, we have to go out and find an independent appraisal that we can sort of say, listen, just don't value, you know, this land that's underwater or whatever. And I'm not convinced, as Beth says, whether it's waterfront or not. But by adding 110 feet to this property, how many tens of thousands of dollars more is the value of this place? So there has to be someone who independently, and not this appraiser, someone who can go out and give us that number. And then, you know, what's wrong if the value goes up 100,000 in you know, sharing and saying, we'll take 50%, you take 50% or whatever. But I think as Councillor Gorham Matthews, feel very uncomfortable saying, not only are we going to sell it, we're going to sell it for $38,000. So I'll obviously be voting against it at that price. As a matter of fact, I think what it should be done is there should be a motion as to whether we're going to sell it at all. And then there should be a second motion as to, if so, at what price? Because I think they're two separate questions. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Okay,
can I'll speak to my motion.
Sure.
I feel like we're putting ourselves in a position of being realtors and real estate. We're not in the business of real estate as a municipality, as a council, in my opinion. I think we went for a reasonable, did our due diligence and got a reasonable price for this property, as the appraiser did. And if I thought for a minute we were encumbering, as I said before, limiting access to the lake, and I'm speaking for ratepayers, I'm speaking for owners of property, I don't think we're, and I'm a backlot person myself, and I look for places to potentially get to the lake at times. I think it's there in this community, in this location. I feel we can go with this price, and my resolution, moving this resolution stands. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, could I say one quick thing?
Sure.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm not even going to talk about the price because I don't think we should sell it. But I've heard, you know, this has been done before and because of the terrain. And I'd just like to point out to people that not everybody wants to go to the lake to dive in or to go fishing or to launch a boat. A lot of people just like to go down and look. Me growing up in Hamilton, there's been multiple places that I could go and anybody could go, and you're not putting a boat in the water. You're not necessarily going fishing, but you could sit down and just look at the water and read a book and enjoy yourself. So when it comes to stocking up any of these, I just like everybody to think about that. So I know, at one time, every inch of shoreline across Lake Ontario was sold off. And then the public demanded access back to the water. And it cost our governments millions of dollars to get that access back. So let's just think about that the next time we consider even selling anything like this.
Well, okay, I hate to suggest this because I'm not anxious to prolong the discussion, but is there any, does anyone want to move to defer this matter for some specific additional information that might change your mind either about whether to sell it or what, or for what amount to sell it?
Mr. Mayor, sorry to interrupt. Wouldn't that be up to the mover and seconder of the motion because there's already a motion on the floor?
Well, a motion to defer has precedence, but under most rules of order, but you can also make an amendment to the motion, which is to do, as Councillor Lamb suggested, I guess, to delete the price from the motion and simply say, test first whether there is a will to sell the property or not. And then at least whether there, because if there isn't, then of course you don't need to worry about what the amount is. We're not going to sell it then.
Mr. Mayor, could I speak to my motion one more time?
All right, go ahead.
I feel if we don't vote on this tonight, we've gone through this exercise for many months. When we went out for an appraisal, at that point, we as a council, in my opinion, had decided that we would sell the property. We wanted a fair price to sell the property at. So we went out for an evaluation and we went to an appraiser for a price on the property. I think we're just dragging this out and we're starting to look more foolish all the time as a council. We can't pass a motion, vote on it, and get on with it, win or lose.
Okay, then I'm going to call the question because I think we've had lots of discussion, or I will say call the correct question.
Could you, Mr. Mayor, could you read the motion one last time, please?
Okay, thank you. That the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby receive the appraisal from Sid Steiner of Remax Perry Sound dated September 27th, 2021 for part of the road allowance adjacent to 215 Farley's Road, and that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone agrees to sell that portion of the road allowance for the appraised value. That's what I have. Okay, are you ready for the question? I'm going to ask for a recorded vote, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Gorham Matthews.
No.
Okay. Councillor Lamb.
No.
Councillor McEwen.
Yes.
Councillor Woods.
No.
Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
The motion is defeated.
Okay, thank you. So I guess we are Just writing the paper here. All right. Well, I guess we are done with this particular item. So thank you, everybody, for all your time and consideration. Number 10, consent agenda. Whereas the council of the municipality has reviewed the consent agenda consisting of council and committee meeting minutes, the regular council minutes for the meeting of October 18th, 2021, and the minutes of the Whitestone Environmental Stewardship Committee meeting of September 15th, 2021, and the unfinished business listed on page 4. Now therefore be it resolved that the council of the municipality of Whitestone does hereby receive and or approve the items contained in the consent agenda dated November 1st, 2021. Could I get a mover and seconder, please?
I'll move,
I'll
Mr.
move,
Mayor.
Councillor Woods.
Councilor McEwen.
Okay, I had Councillor McEwen first and Councillor Woods second. Any discussion about these items? If not, is anyone opposed to them? All right, that item is approved. And there are no matters arising. At least I assume there aren't. Brings us to accounts payable. Could I get a mover and seconder, please, that the council of the municipality of Whitestone approve accounts payable in the amount of $526,670.23 and payroll in the amount of $28,335.20 for payment.
I'll move, Councillor Woods.
Thank you, Councillor Wood, seconded by
I'll second.
Councillor Gorman Matthews. Seconds, thank you. Is there any discussion, questions or comments about any of them? If not, I will ask.
Mr. Mayor, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was on mute. Just let me look at my notes here. Yeah. I noticed on page 32 in our agenda, $287,466.22 was paid to Duncor for the various work in our municipality on our roads. I'd like to know, and I realize the clerk may not have this information handy, but maybe under separate, maybe if you could email it. Is all that work A, done for the year, and B, was it within budget?
I'll ask our clerk, Judy, if she can answer your question, and if not, I guess we'll get a.
I feel I can answer half of it. Yes, that work that's been billed is done. However, I'm not sure about what the comparables are to the budget. So that is something, though, that I can look into and get back to you with.
Thank you. My second question is on page 39, Shawanaga Lake Road grant for 218791. I assume that grant is for the portion of the road that's unmaintained. Is that correct?
Sorry, just one moment. What page was that again? I'm sorry.
Page 39.
Okay.
We have summer maintenance on part of the road, and then the other part is not maintained at all. And I think that's where the nearly $2,200 road grant is for, but that's what I'm looking for confirmation of.
Okay, so yes, that is for the unmaintained portion of the road. And that is part of our road grant program.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments about payables? Okay, if not, could I ask, Madam Clerk, could I ask you to call the roll on this one, please?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Gore Matthews.
Yes.
Councillor Lamb.
Yes.
Councillor McEwen.
Yes.
Councillor Woods.
Yes.
Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
That motion is carried.
Thank you very much. Now we have some bylaw items to deal with. Item 12.1. Whereas bylaw 46-2021 being a bylaw to close and stop up that part of the original shore road allowance along the shores of a Washcash Lake in front of lot 28, concession 5 in the Geographic Township of Mackenzie. The owner is a corporation, actually, Brendan Paradigm, has been given a first and second reading with no amendments this first day of November 2021. Now, therefore, be it resolved that bylaw 46-2021 be given a third and final reading and enacted as of this first day of November 2021. So this, councillors, you will recall, is an item that has come to us before. There was an application to purchase the shore road allowance by the Brennans, and we agreed to that. And this is the last step in that, well, at least the last step for council in that process. Could I get a mover and seconder, please?
I'll move, Councillor Woods.
Thank you, Councillor Woods, seconded by
I'll second.
Councillor Gorham Matthews. Thank you. Is there any discussion about this motion? Hearing none, I will ask the clerk to call the roll, please, for the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Gore Matthews.
Yes.
Councillor Lamb.
Yes.
Councillor McEwen.
Yes.
Councillor Woods.
Yes.
Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
That motion is carried.
Thank you. The next one is our waste bylaw, which again has been with council before several times. Here's the motion I'm looking for, that bylaw 47-2021 being a bylaw for establishing and maintaining a system for the disposal of solid wastes and recyclable materials within the municipality of Whitestone be read a first and second time this first day of November 2021, and further read a third time, passed and properly signed and sealed this first day of November 2021 and numbered bylaw 47-2021, and that bylaw 19-2010, that's the previous waste management bylaw, be repealed as of this first day of November 2021. Would someone move that motion, please?
I'll move, Councillor Woods.
Thank you, Councillor Woods, seconded by,
I'll second, Councillor McEwen.
thank you, Councillor McEwen. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, if I could, Councillor Woods.
Go ahead, Councillor Woods.
Not a heck of a lot. I mean, I know this has been here multiple times. Councillor McEwen and I have, we've talked garbage and landfill for a very long time, that's for sure. Had some really good discussions, I think. There was a couple of things that when I was reading through the paper copy today, I don't know, I think it's my error. I'll say that. I have a hard time looking at a screen, whereas once I get the paper copy, I go through it, I pick things out a little bit easier. The section 7.8, 7.9, and 7.10, when it comes to a person with a medical condition, I don't know. To me, it seems like a lot for a person to do if they have a medical condition. And just hear me out for a quick scenario. So let's say I wear Depends because I have a problem. I have to go into the office and apply for an exemption, and then I have to bring in a doctor's note, and I have to prove that I own the property in order to be given a specified number of medical waste disposable tags. If it were me and I got to go in and I, say sit down and talk to our clerk and I tell her that's fine, but then, the clerk has to tell somebody else in the office, and then they go tell the public works manager, and then he goes and lets the guys know at the dump. I don't know. I think some people might have a problem with that. I mean, if somebody has a medical condition and they say, listen, I wear diapers and I don't want anybody to know, can't we just take their word for it? I mean, that's just one. And I think if anybody actually sits and thinks about that, you might all think the same kind of idea. And then it came to section, let's see, page 57, 9.9. And Councillor McEwen and I had a discussion on the phone today and kind of chewed on this a little bit. It's talking about where to throw garbage in and on properties. And so 9.9 reads, no person shall throw, place, deposit, or dump, or cause, or permit to be thrown, placed, deposited, or dumped refuse on property without the approval of the owner of the property. And 9.10, pretty much the same thing, but it refers to the highway, so you can't throw your garbage on the highway, which I agree with totally, and I agree that you shouldn't be allowed to dump on someone's property. 9.11 is just holding people liable for having to clean said garbage up, but I don't understand why this is in a landfill bylaw. And I didn't catch it, and it's my fault. I'll admit to that. I'm not trying to attack the work that Joe and I and the rest of the committee have done, because we have put in a heck of a lot of work, but I missed it, honestly. I don't know why that belongs in a landfill bylaw. I mean, garbage on illegal dumping on someone else's property, I don't see why that would be part of our bylaw for our landfill sites. Maybe I'm wrong, so please tell me if you think I am. And then the next section, enforcement and penalty provisions, 10.2. And once again, this statement comes out: an officer may enter on land at any reasonable time for the purpose of carrying out an inspection to determine whether or not A, the bylaw is being complied with, or B, a direction or order made under the Municipal Act or this bylaw is being complied with. I don't understand why this is, to me, it's slipped in. You're talking about entering onto land in a landfill bylaw, giving the bylaw officer the right to walk into land, and I don't understand it. If anybody has anything they'd like to say, maybe tell me I'm wrong, or they understand why, then please do, because I don't know. I'm lost, especially when it comes to the enforcement one about the bylaw officer.
Mr. Mayor, I might have one comment there if I could on
Sure, go ahead, yes.
10.2. When we discussed it today, Councilor Woods and I, one thing that came up out of it was that, okay, we're saying an officer may enter on land, that's land in the municipality. It's a landfill bylaw in essence. If that were changed to an officer may enter on landfill land at any reasonable time for the purpose of carrying out inspection or determining whether or not A and B. That would be more specific to the landfill. In my mind, I think that might be sufficient for the enforcement and penalty provision. The disposable items, as in personal items, that was discussed in some length. We never discussed that one today, but I have to concur with Councillor Woods that there should be some way of doing it with more discretion for people who do have those issues. And maybe we're reading more into it than is actually there in print. I think there's a fair legalistic connection with some of these statements. And they're coming from other locations, other policies possibly as well. But maybe it should be, I hate to do this, but revisit it a little bit on that item. And the other one that Councilor Woods mentioned, maybe you can direct me to it. I believe it was 5 something.
Are you talking about the dumping, illegal dumping, basically, Councillor McEwen? That's it.
Yeah.
It would be page 57 and 9.9, 910, and 911.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that was the other 9, 9, 10, and 11. The throwing of the waste or garbage along roads and on private properties. I guess it all fits within the municipality, but in essence, this is a landfill bylaw. I'm not sure if we want to be connecting the depositing on highways and on private property in this bylaw. Maybe we could get some further opinion on a couple of these. I know we've been a heck of a long time getting it to this point of hopefully getting it approved. But it's the kind of bylaw that every time you look at it, you can second guess yourself as to why and what was discussed. This goes back at least a year on some of these items. And our deputy clerk, she was part of this long process. I don't know if she would have a comment or two on a couple of these items.
And perhaps we might give her the opportunity, since she was part of that task force, to, if she wants to comment about any of these. And not to put you on the spot, Judy, but
No worries. Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. These are items that have been in the bylaw all the way through, so nothing was sort of slipped in last minute. They've been there and part of the bylaws. We've gone through the process. I think the idea of the illegal dumping came from our bylaw officer. We don't really have any mechanism for identifying some sort of enforcement measure for people just dumping garbage anywhere.
Yeah.
So being that this is the waste and recycling bylaw, it kind of fit under there. And as for the medical condition, that was researched, and it was essentially what other municipalities are doing. I mean, I'm not hooked to it. It's just, it has been there all through. So I guess that's really all I have to share on that.
okay,
Mr.
thank
Mayor?
you. Who's it, Councillor Lamb?
Yeah, just very
Go ahead.
quickly, I want to commend both councillors and the clerk for the work they've done, and they've done really good work over the last, I don't know how long, it's got to be a year and a half at least, in creeping our way to what I think is a really good bylaw. So it appears we can make some minor changes. So I would I would suspect that we should defer it, and that the comments that are made should either be clarified or make minor changes to the bylaw. I think the bylaw officer has access to the landfill site, so I think that whole section could probably come out. But anyway, I think we should, with the permission of the mover and the seconder, just defer it. And then hopefully when it comes back next time, we can applaud and get it all done. So thank you.
Okay, are there other, I've made a note of the three things that Councillor Woods raised. Are there other sections that people wanted to comment on, or other aspects of this that anybody else wanted to raise?
Mr. Mayor, I just might make a comment, and that is, it's a complimentary comment to ratepayers and visitors and users of our landfills. And I think they've done a remarkable job. We've made some very big moves in asking people to take stuff to from York to Alls Road on a large scale. And I think the efforts have been paying off in tidiness around the landfills, with the collections in the clear bags, and very little flyaway stuff happening, not as much anyway as we had in previous years. The landfill at York, it was getting to be in a dire state if we weren't careful. So some of the big moves we've made and trying to combine the effort between the two landfills, I think it's paying off for us, and it's paying off mainly because of the users and the employees working around the landfills as well. So appreciated.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for that comment. Which I was going to echo, but anyway, with respect to the items that Councillor Woods raised, I'm of the view that 7, 8, I guess I assume that these had been sort of agreed to by the committee, but items 7.8, 7.9, and 7.10, I think we could simply remove and leave 7.7 the way it is. As a practical matter, I would not ever expect us to implement 7.8 and 7.10, at least not in the foreseeable future. And so I think if we're not going to actually do it, I'm not sure why we would write it down, but that's just my own view. And I realize that other people have got this provision, but so that, if somebody comes in and they're still using those giant orange garbage bags, yard waste bags, and they're putting all their waste in it that's going to get thrown over the hill, and they say, well, when they're challenged by the attendant, they say, well, I've got some sanitary products inside and I don't want people to see what they are, then I think that's still actionable, but you're not going to have that happen if somebody puts an opaque bag inside the middle of one of those, and it's not a huge amount, and then I can't see anybody challenging them on that. So number 9, 10, 11, the reason those are there, and I'm sorry our bylaw officer isn't here to cover this off to you, but this is not a landfill bylaw. This is a waste and disposal and recycling bylaw. And it doesn't just apply to the landfill sites. It applies to any place. We don't have a provision to stop people from throwing garbage on the roadside, on other people's property, or other things in the municipality. And we do need to have that ability. And by the way, just so you know, a highway is a highway within the meaning of a highway, the Highway Traffic Act. That doesn't just mean Highway 124 and Highway 520. That means the Washcash Road, Edgewood Road, Canning Road, etc. These are highways within the meaning of the law. So if people just decide they're not going to bother going to the landfill site, they're going to dump it at the side of the road or dump it on somebody else's property, where, you know, that we need to have the ability to deal with those. So that's why those are there. And I think it's the same reason it is a requirement that same reason leads to the requirement at 10.2. The bylaw officer, if there's evidence that somebody has disposed of garbage on some piece of property, public or private property, needs to have the ability to go and see if, in fact, that is what's happening. If people are improperly disposing of garbage on their own properties, because they think it's something that they might have trouble, they might get called on if they took it to the landfill site, it's hazardous or something of that sort, then again, they may need the ability. These things, as you probably know, if you actually go to prosecute someone for doing something like this, you have to, in order to get a conviction, you have to be able to demonstrate that you had reasonable and probable grounds to go on search. It's not like you can just go wander on people's property and go wander around looking for offenses. You have to have some reason to believe that there's, in this case, garbage being dumped or hazardous materials or something being disposed of on the property. But they need the ability to do that without going and getting a court order. You know, it's a bylaw, and it's a common provision of bylaws like this. So I mean, I'm not sure that those are I think are there for good reasons. But anyway, it's up to you. I'm appreciative of the work that was done by the committee on this. I know it wasn't easy all the time. I'd like to get this wrapped up. But if you wish to take it back, I think my anticipation is that what you would get back is an agreement to remove those 7.8 to 7.10, and the rest we would simply get a rationale for why they need to stay there. So it's up to the council. If you want to amend the bylaw to remove those three and approve it with that, you could. If you want to get a report back for another meeting, I guess that's you can defer it with a request to review those items that were raised.
Mr. Mayor, I would leave it up to the two councillors who are on the committee, whatever way they want to go, I would go with.
Well, that's, thank you. They're the mover and seconder. Gentlemen, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Woods, if I
Yes.
could.
Yeah.
Councillor McEwen, don't get mad at me. I would say defer this and we look at this real quick. And Mr. Mayor, 10.2, I have to say I disagree with you on that one, but we can have that discussion at a later date.
Okay, our bylaw enforcement officer is going to tell you what I just told you.
Well, I realize he is.
Yeah.
I'm not going to dispute that fact. But I think that the bylaw officer should have the exact same rights as a police officer. If you got to go check someone's land, you talk to the landowner first. You knock on the front door. If they're not there, you leave a card. That's it. They have the same rights as a police officer. A police officer can't just walk on. But the way that this is written, and this is multiple times it's been in bylaws, a bylaw officer could walk right past me on my land to go do his inspection. And that I don't agree with.
Well, so you want to put a provision. A police officer can walk onto your land if he or she has reason to believe that an offense is being committed. They don't need your permission.
Right.
They don't need your permission.
In hot pursuit.
As a matter of,
Mr. Mayor, I'm not I'm not trying to argue with you. I've reviewed this with multiple police officers in the community and a bylaw officer in Mississauga, which is the only reason I'm saying that.
No, as a matter of course, they do that. I'm not saying they don't do that, but they have the right to do it without notifying you if they don't want to. They have reason to believe it's an offense. I
Mr.
used
Mayor,
to be
as I-
one. Okay,
I second this, I would agree to send it back for just some, hopefully just minor touch up and maybe
All right.
elimination of a couple sentences. Thank you.
all right. Well, can we agree then that this motion is deferred to it is deferred. Well, I'll write down, I will record the sections that on the notes that okay, review. I'll put down, I won't do it now, but I'll put down the sections that Councillor Woods raised. Review sections and whatnot. That way we know what we're doing. I'm sure our deputy clerk has taken a note of this. Okay, the next one. And hopefully this will be a little easier. This is a bylaw to authorize, sorry, make sure I'm just talking about the right one here. This is to authorize this me and the CAO to enter into an agreement with Her Majesty to receive a grant, a municipal modernization program intake grant. So unless it's the will of council to say, no, sorry, we don't want your money. But anyway, here's the motion I'm looking for. That bylaw 48-2021 being a bylaw to enter into an agreement with Her Majesty the Queen in Right of Ontario as represented by the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing for the purposes of receiving the Municipal Modernization Program Intake 2 grant be read a first and second time this first day of November 2021 and further read a third time passed and properly signed and sealed this first day of November 2021 and numbered bylaw 48-2021. Would somebody like to move that, please?
I'll move it, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb. Seconded by?
I'll second, Councillor Woods.
Thank you, Councillor Woods. I'm sure that you saw a note from our CAO that we had been awarded this grant. It's a decent amount of money. Is there any question or discussion? Is anyone opposed to the motion? Okay, thank you. Okay, staff reports. 13.1 is an annual review and update of bylaw 40-2020, which is our fee bylaw. That the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby receive staff memo annual review and update of bylaw 40-2020 being a bylaw to establish fees and charges for services provided by the municipality of Whitestone, and that the fees and charges bylaw be updated as recommended. And you have a memo which explains what the changes were. Is there a mover and seconder for this one, please?
I'll move, Councillor McEwen.
Thank you, Councillor McEwen, seconded by
I'll second.
Councillor Gorham Matthews. Thank you. So is there any discussion about this particular motion? Did you sorry, I'm looking for the first page of it here, but It would help if I got into the right section of the agenda here. Okay, sorry. You can see you can see a summary of the changes that they're all on page 65 and 66. And they affect, well, they affect most of the chat schedules, but relatively minor things. Nothing on schedule D or E or G or I or J. Okay, so I'll ask again, any comments or questions about these?
Mr. Mayor, if I could, Councillor Woods,
Go ahead.
just one quick one, Schedule H. And I'm only bringing this up because I'm on that dog bylaw review committee. I don't know if anybody saw this or not, but there is a recommendation coming forward of the consideration of a lifetime dog tag, and the price would be increased from $10 for a year to $50 for a lifetime tag.
Okay, so you're just drawing this to the attention. You're not speaking against it.
Yeah,
or-
that's it. No, no,
Yeah.
I'm not speaking against it. I'm just bringing it up.
Okay. And that's the lifetime of the dog, I'm assuming they're talking about, right? Not the
Yeah.
lifetime of the owner.
Yeah, well, that'd be nice, but no, lifetime of the dog.
All right,
Mr. Mayor,
go ahead.
Since I moved it, when I did the scrutiny of it, I think we did a pretty good job, was it last year or the year before, and updated our fees and charges by law. I think we did a pretty good job on it. I'll note that in Schedule F, cemetery rate fees, they've seen fit to increase fees for certain functions performed around cemetery. It's
Yeah,
like they zeroed in on square footage for this and that, and have changed it from $50 to $100, depending on what the functions are.
mm-hmm.
But I thought we'd covered off pretty well, and the descriptive sheets, page 65 and 66, they give a pretty good summary of it. Thank you.
Okay, well, if there if there is no further discussion, when I saw this, I'm going to say I tripped over the item that was added to Schedule C, the first bullet point, which is at the bottom of page 65 under Schedule C. There's a thing called a shore road allowance lease, and I asked our planner today, I said, where did this come from? And turns out we passed a resolution back in, I'm going to say April or March or April of this year when we were discussing a particular issue. And this was to facilitate dock permits, ostensibly to facilitate the issuance of dock permits for people who don't own their shore road allowance. And maybe that'll refresh your memory as to what it was. And she sent me the actual resolution that we passed, which was, you see there, 2021-158. And I am not convinced that that having shore road allowance leases is the right thing to do for that particular, to solve that particular problem. I guess it gives us another mechanism that we could use in lieu of an encroachment agreement. But and it kind of begs the question which one you would actually use and why. But in any case, I don't, putting it in the fees by law, there isn't any other mechanism that there's no mechanism to enable this. I mean, we haven't had anybody come and say, I want to lease my shore road allowance, because they don't know that they can, and I don't know that there's the protocol around how you would make this happen. So we got a price for it if we approve this, but I guess what I'm saying to you is there might be some more work that needs to be done on sort of figuring out how to actually make this happen, if indeed that's what we really want to do. But I'm not going to suggest that we turn the schedule back to have that discussion, because that could be a fairly lengthy one, and it could involve amendments to zoning bylaw or various other things. So it sounds like if nobody has any other issues with this, then I'm gonna call the question on it. Are there anybody else want to speak to any of these? No? Okay. This is a bylaw. Madam CAO, can you call the clerk? Can you call the roll for us, please, for the vote?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Madam Clerk, I meant to say, sorry. I just gave Judy a promotion.
I like that. Sorry, Councillor Gorham Matthews,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor McEwen,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
and Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion is carried.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so that brings us to business matters 14, which there appeared to be none. And now to correspondence, which is listed on page 5. So could I get a mover and seconder, please, for the following? Whereas the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone has reviewed the correspondence items listed on page 5 of the November 1st, 2021 Council agenda. Now therefore be it resolved that Council received the correspondence items for information with the following extracted for further discussion or action. Mover and seconder, please.
I'll move. Councillor Woods.
Thank you, Councillor Woods. Seconded by
I'll second.
Councillor Gorham Matthews. Thank you. Now then, if you would care to look at those items, are there any that you would, or on page, page 5, I think. Are there any that you would like to pull for discussion? I wondered if Councillor McEwen, if you wanted to say something about item C, for example.
I could speak briefly.
Do you wish to? I'm not, if you don't want to, it's okay.
I can give a very quick little brief there. Yes, sir.
All right, might be, let's do C. Any others, folks, that you would like? That's OPP calls for service.
Am I on?
Well, just a second. I'm just wondering if there are any others. I'm going to ask for item L too, if there's no others in between. All right, item L, which is Roma delegation. I'll just call it. Okay. Now then. So OPP calls for service. First item, Councillor McEwen.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. We held a meeting, a quarterly meeting, which we have on OPP Community Services Board. The stats are, they're a summary really of a breakdown that we go through in some detail, but I guess the bottom line on it for this current year versus the previous year, we pay out on a fee for service, call for service basis, and we're actually down very, very small amount, but slightly over 2020, which is good. So in essence, we've got, I'd say, similar services provided. I noticed though the other night that property damage reporting, such as motor vehicles, and then property on properties itself or residences, it's up a bit over 2020. But the numbers overall just kind of average themselves out, which is a good thing. 911 calls, which have been a nuisance thing and a big cost item, they've been for a greater part taken out of the calls for service, which is saving each of the communities a few $1,000s a year anyway. But I don't think anything really stood out, jumped right out at me. The infractions for drinking and driving, they've been up considerably over the district, not so much in Whitestone, thank goodness. We've had our share of incidents and accidents in Whitestone, but there's a small number compared to the whole detachment, of course. But speeding's been a noted issue, whether you're on 400 highways, Carling, 124, certainly no exception. There have been a lot of complaints and a lot of concerns over speeding. A lot of it came up through the construction between McKellar and Prairie Sound, which wasn't a direct impact on us in Whitestone, but up this way from McKellar through to Sundridge, all the way up the 124 corridor, there's a noted change in driving speeds, it seems. OPP is stretched thin enough that they don't get out here like they would like to. They're asking us to consider some means of looking at maybe recording devices, which don't put out fines, but they show the OPP and the municipality at what time of day, what day of the week, and how many infractions and speeding issues there are over certain hours. And they can go out to those locations with specific traps and officers to do some enforcement if they know what the numbers are. But that's probably the only way we're going to get them up and out here in a meaningful way in the very near future. The change to a police services board, that was discussed very briefly because there's really no new information on it. The government have yet to establish which way they're going to go totally with that. And what it will do is reduce numbers of representatives or increase them depending on where you are, and all that kind of thing, to represent the actual municipalities. So that'll be coming down probably after the next election, from what I'm hearing these days. So anyway, that's about it for OPP.
Okay, thank you. I might just mention to council that I did have a couple of calls from ratepayers saying, complaining about people speeding through Dunchurch or in the Dunchurch area. And I spoke to Jeremy McDonald, who's the detachment commander in Parry Sound, about this to sort of generally encourage them to have more of a presence in Whitestone. And I got the response that Councillor McEwen has already conveyed to you, which is we're short of resources and it's only so much we can do. But he did say if we knew when these speeding offenses were taking place, then we could sort of target our enforcement. And he suggested that we might want to look at some of those signs that you've seen in various places, which simply say your speed is, they're radar signs, and they pick up the radar. They don't, as Councillor McEwen said, they don't charge on the basis of that, but they do actually record the date and time and how fast the person was going. And so that provides use for the OPP in order to target their enforcement. And it just happens that our neighbors to the south in McKellar have purchased a couple of those signs and are in the process of getting permission from MTO to deploy them. And so the thought was that perhaps we might be able to share the signs with them on some basis, rather than going and buying our own. Because they don't leave them out all the time. Of course, they just put them in certain places for certain periods of time. And our manager of public works is talking to Greg Gostick, who is his equivalent in McKellar, about and getting all the information about the process you have to go through to get permission to put them out and that kind of thing. And do I think anything's going to happen before spring of next year? No, but the idea is that we're going to try and get ready to see if we can do something like that and provide some data to the OPP that would help them target their enforcement. So just so you know what's happening with that. Item L is just a copy of a notice that came from AMO about the Roma delegation. Roma is kind of like a subsidiary of AMO. And the conference itself it will be a virtual conference again. I'm virtually certain. Haven't seen the announcements. It takes place normally at the end of January, but the deadline to request delegations is November 15th, which is why I asked the clerk to put it on the list for this month, for this meeting. The suggestion I have is that we try to follow up with the delegations that we've had in previous years related to the problems with the area west of Ardbeg, I'll say, the from Clear Lake to Bolger, that kind of area. We've in informal discussions that we've had about this since the last delegation that we had, the suggestion has come, and it came mostly from MNR's enforcement people, that it is time to open up for our government to open up the Public Lands Act and bring it up to date and put into it some specific things that would limit that are more specific about the kinds of things that you can and can't do on Crown land, on public lands. That piece of legislation is very, very old. It hasn't been touched since I think the 1950s. And they've been trying to get some political support to sort of open it up. I was referred to the province of Alberta's Public Lands Act, and it was updated a couple of years ago, and it's got the kind of stuff that ours should have in it, but doesn't. So that would make it a little easier for them to make it very clear to people what it is, what kind of activities are permitted and not permitted. So anyway, in a nutshell, the request would probably be to the minister, and the minister in this case is Greg Rickford, who is Minister of Northern Development, Mines, Natural Resources and Forestry. And it's just quite a mouthful. I can't even get the letters straight anymore. But anyway, that's my suggestion. If others have suggestions for things that you would like, that you think should be the subject of a delegation, I'd love to hear those ideas. And well, if you come up, if you don't think of anything right now, but you come up with something in a week, say a week, like we need a little bit of time to put well, actually we don't. We just basically what we have to do by the 15th is we have to identify which minister it is that we want to speak to about what. And, so you have a little description of the issue you want to talk about. And then as we get closer to the meeting in January, we usually present a briefing note, which covers off the information. So they've got something to read in advance and circulate amongst the bureaucrats. So anyway, if I can leave that with you, if you have any thoughts or suggestions, please don't hesitate to give me a shout. Anyway, is there anything else you want to discuss under correspondence? I don't know if I actually called the question. Did I call the question for this motion?
No.
Okay, is anybody opposed to it? Now that we've effectively done it and done what we said. Okay, thank you. I'm going to declare it carried just for the record. So, councillor items.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead. Councillor Lamb.
This is Councillor Lamb. I have 4 items. The first one is I got a notice, and I think there's been a notice posted about the water tap at the community hall. That program of having water from the community hall is proved to be a tremendous asset for our community. There's lots of people that use it. But I remember last year the question of why can't we keep it open in the winter? And if I recall correctly, it was we can keep it open. There's not a fear of the tap itself freezing because of whatever technology we have on it. But it related more to, well, the water drips, it forms ice, and people might slip and fall and that kind of thing. So I thought that the roads superintendent was looking at a way that we possibly could keep the tap open. So I would ask simply that maybe staff look at this and see if there's a way that we can responsibly leave the tap open. There are more and more people that use their place all year, and many of those people who might come up in the wintertime don't necessarily have water, so or certainly don't have drinking water. So that's one item that I just asked for some comment on by staff back to me. The second item I have are council meetings. I think we've reached the time that we need to think seriously about opening council meetings to the public. They're doing it in McKellar. I know. I don't know about other places, but we need to go back into the community center. I know that the Ford government, I think last week or early or sometime last week, sort of started to open things up a bit for more people being in public. And I think for the number of people that we get that come to meetings in person, that we could easily do it in the community hall. What I'm concerned about is this: when we do open and I think we should put this on the agenda for discussion, maybe at the next meeting. But when we do open it, I want to ensure that we also can contain a Zoom link. Because I think that if COVID's taught us anything, it's that we can have a lot more participation with a Zoom link. So I would like to see, in a perfect world, where we're in the community center, we've got new technology in terms of some of the sound systems in there, so that we could have a meeting, but at the same time, people could listen in live by Zoom or come by video and join. So I'd like to see that combination, but I think it's time that we started talking about going back live in council. My third thing is just a question, and I guess I can ask tomorrow at the office, but I'm always interested in the chipping of brush up at Alls. And I keep kind of getting, well, they're in next week, or they're coming, or they're on the way, they're somewhere else. But I'd like just maybe a quick email as to whether they've started to chip all that brush, because I'm really concerned about how much is up at Alls this year. And if not, when they are going to start, I want to make sure it's done this year and not slop into next year. And my final question is on the impact values, which we talked about a little bit earlier. The impact values that are being used or were used up to 2021, I think were the 2015 values, if I'm not mistaken.
16,
and
yeah.
15, yeah. So I know that they did the 219 values, and they've never put them into effect in 220 or 221. And I guess my question is, do we have any knowledge at all that come 2022 that the provincial government is going to implement the 219 values and then phase people in or out and whatever? So I don't know the answer to that question, and I wondered if anyone did. So those are my 4 items. I will yield the floor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just before we ask if there are any other council items, just a quick comment about 2 of those. The last one is easy. We do not have an answer on MPAC at this point. MPAC has actually, they sent out periodic updates about things that are going on, and I guess we could have added the last, well, one just came, I just saw one, I think today or yesterday or something, but today or Friday maybe, but it tried to answer your question by saying basically we don't know. But anyway, that's everybody is asking this question, but so far we don't have an answer. The council meetings, you're correct, we do in the community center, we do have facilities to handle nice meetings in the community center. Unfortunately, what we don't have at this point is good internet capability to permit or to facilitate remote participation in those meetings. We could probably record them and get them out. We might even be able to live stream them, but so people could listen to them, but people would not remotely, it's very unlikely they would be unable to participate. We are waiting, I've shared with a couple of you already that we are waiting for Bell to do something that they're doing at Butler's Creek. And it should be done by now. And I'm expecting a sort of some notification any day now, but when we receive that, I'm hopeful that we will be able to get a better internet connection in the municipal office and the community center. And when that, as soon as I know something, it's not guaranteed, but as soon as I know something, that'll I would say play a big value, be a big factor in enabling us to kind of open back up the way we had hoped all along we would be able to do. So anyway, just a couple of comments with those from me. Are there other councillor items? Anybody
Mr.
want to
Mayor,
report?
That one, Mr.
Okay,
Go
I
ahead,
got Councillor Gorham Matthews first. Do you want to
Oh.
report on Sunday and Halloween?
I
Or
was. Yeah, I just wanted to thank all the community members and the fire department and the rec committee for organizing the community trick or treating at the fire hall. We had over 50 kids go through over the 3 hours that it ran, and it went really smoothly. We had lots of candy to give out. I was there with the Lions Club, and we had a table giving out candy as well. And it was a very fun afternoon, and I think everyone enjoyed it. So thanks for all the support.
okay, thank you. Councillor McEwen, you had a
Yeah, I was just gonna comment on the same thing.
uh,
The very successful day that happened. A few folks that came to my house after, they were very excited that they'd had the little guys up there. They're appreciative of the rescue fire department, recreation, other community people who had tables and put things on up there. Mr. Mayor, I've been checking connectivity, speed checks, still no results from the towers. So waiting patiently. Thank you.
yeah.
That's it.
All right, thank you. Any other councillor comments? All right, are there any questions from the public? It looks like Ed, you're still here. I think you're the only member of the public who is still on the call, but
Okay, I'll make this brief. I've had some health issues recently. I haven't been able to attend council meetings, so this is just a follow-up on the situation with the pool. The last thing I heard was that Clayton Harris was in the process of finalizing an agreement with the municipality, and I've had no information as to what happened. So maybe you could just give us an update on what's happening with the pool in terms of our contribution or donation as it is, and where the whole thing stands. If you just a very brief answer, if you could.
okay, thank you. I will try to do that. I should start by saying that the original pool committee that I was a member of no longer exists. It's for all, and if it did, I wouldn't be a part of it anyway, probably. But in any case, it has morphed, if you will, into the Shared Services Board, which was set up, and as you may recall, this municipality declined to be part of the Shared Services Board, so we don't have a representative on that body. The thing that you're referring to, the agreement that you're referring to, Ed, was an agreement that the Shared Services Board thought they should draft simply to encapsulate, if you will, the commitment that Whitestone did make to support the pool. I understand that they had some questions about sort of what the terms of some aspects of that. I honestly don't know exactly what those questions are. I did hear from our clerk earlier today about some of them, but I think what will happen is we will find out what it is. It doesn't. My view of it is that it doesn't change anything in the sense that the council made a commitment to provide support of two kinds to the project. The project is going ahead. It's there wasn't any suggestion that we would be making any financial contribution to it in the immediate term, because if you go back and look at what we agreed to do, that was contingent on certain things happening that haven't happened yet, and probably won't happen for, it could be that late, it could be this time next year or even later, I suppose. But in any case, I guess the short answer really is there isn't anything new, but once we do have something that, if for example, if they do ask us to sign something further to the commitment that we already made, then it will come before council, and everybody will see what it is. I'm not anticipating that it'll be any, I mean, it's not going to be different. It's not, there's no proposal that we open up at least I don't think there's any discussion that we open up the whole matter again and consider other things that we didn't consider before. It's just a matter of them wanting to get clarification as to exactly what we said we were going to do and when we were going to do it.
Okay, thank you very much. I
That help?
appreciate the update.
All right. Okay, well, I guess I don't think, as I say, I don't think there are any other members of the public. So we probably can. I'm just making a note. Confirming bylaw. Mover and seconder, please.
I'll move it, Counselor Lamb.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb, seconded by.
Second, Councillor
I'll
McEwen.
second.
Okay, I got Councillor McEwen first. I'm assuming everybody is in agreement with that. Adjournment. Would like to move that.
I'll move, Councillor Woods.
Councillor Woods, great, thank you. And seconded by.
Second.
Councillor Gorham Matthews. And therefore be it resolved that this meeting be adjourned at 9:36 p.m. until the next scheduled regular council meeting, which is Monday, November the 15th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. or at the call of the chair. So thank you very much, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.